Well, I would say that there's two YouTube personalities that are from two different A states. One from Alabama, such as me, and Mr. Arkansas over here from Arkansas. Welcome, Arkansas Picker. Thank you for
How's
coming to
it
the
going?
show.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Man,
Us,
this
us,
is
us,
yeah.
us A states gotta stick together.
Yeah, a bunch of the southern states, and that's one thing that kind of surprised me is that I know Eric and Jared had never been to Alabama before, but I want to say that you've been to that state before for a show, or am I mishearing that correctly?
No, I don't think I've ever been to a show in Alabama. I've been through Alabama several times, but I think the show that we did, Game Jam South, that show that I met you at,
Mhm.
that I think that's the longest I've ever really stayed in Alabama.
Yeah, honestly, there's not a whole lot I remember in that state because when I left originally, that there was really nothing in that city or just like around just the Bible Belt line. And I come back about like 2 years later, and there's just all of this new stuff that is like set up now. But yeah, Game Jam South was a bit of a surprise because I remember when they were starting out, it was not a very big venue, but for them to be able to get the size that they have now, including like, just a panel room, because most new conventions don't usually get like their own panel room. So for like a personal like first-hand experience, like how did you enjoy the convention?
I really, really enjoyed it. It actually, I didn't expect much, and not to be mean, but I just didn't expect much. It was a smaller con. Like the few years before, it had been a smaller con,
Mhm.
and they didn't have any like big name guests or anything. So I expected to just go and it be pretty much like a glorified swap meet, which is fine because I enjoy a swap meet. But it actually was very well put together. It was way bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
I, I was a vendor there, a guest vendor, and I ended up coming home with a little bit more money than I thought it would. So it was all together. It was not only was it a success like for me to just go to, but it was like a blast to be at because it was my first chance to meet you, and
Mhm.
I got to hang out with Retro Wolf and Pac-Man Case and Gaming Pandemic, Retro Gaming Pandemic, and just all of them. Tendo. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I noticed is that the layout of it, I wasn't really sure like what booths were where, but it felt more like it was small inside, but it had a lot of stuff to look at. And
Yeah,
including on the wall where you guys were at, where it was like all of the guest vendors, and I guess the other two, which were voice talent. I forget who the voice actress was. She was Legend of Zelda.
she does Zelda in Breath of the Wild.
Oh yes, that's right.
I can't remember her name, but I remember that was her role.
Yeah, and at the time of this interview, Tears of the Kingdom just came out, so I know a lot of people that are watching this are pretty much playing that too. But yeah, the convention as a whole did have a bunch of stuff going on for it, and I think that they had a pretty good variety. Does that seem like that's your thing, where you go to a convention that you're always looking for like things that are uniquely added in, or you just go to like any convention that's pretty much out there nowadays?
If a convention is if I go to a convention that's mostly anime, that's usually not my thing. Not that there's anything
Mhm.
wrong with anime, but like I'm a collector and I don't collect for anime. So like I'm looking for video games, vintage clothes and stuff like that. But I always try to at least if I'm going to a con, I will check the vendor list, and if there's like at least two booths that are selling video games, I'm like, all right, I'm in the money because I can find something.
Hmm.
I'll be able to find something that I want because I collect for a variety of things. Um, so I can and and almost always I can find a really cheap video game carrying case at some booth because that's a weird thing that I collect, but it's also something that's undervalued a lot. So sometimes I'll just pick one. I'll find something. I'll pick it up, and I'll be like, "Hey, how much is this?" And they're like, "Oh, $5." And then I'm like, "Yes, it's mine. It's mine. I'm taking it home."
Yeah, that was
But
the other thing I noticed with Game Jam South. There were a bunch of vendors just discounting a bunch of things out and just trying to get it outsold. Like I know Southern Fried Gaming Expo. Again, big shout out. I already gave them a shout out enough as it is, but because of the deals that I got at their booth, like they were selling a lot of cheap games for that price, but as for like, since we're talking about booths at that con, like, what was the one that really surprised you the most? Not just like for the amount of variety that there was, but possibly for like the amount of deals that you were possibly getting on hand over there.
so I did not allow myself time to shop because I knew that if I did, I would come home with negative money instead of positive money.
Oh
Because
yeah.
whenever I'm set in an environment where I'm surrounded by video games, that is not good for my wallet. So
Hmm.
I stayed at my booth. I did two walkarounds for YouTube. I was recording stuff, and I wanted to meet everybody and talk to you everybody.
Mhm.
But with that being said, Two Dudes Gaming was across from me, and they came over and they made a big stack of stuff to buy, and they were like, "How much for all this?" And I was like, I think it was like $80. And he was like, "You want to trade something?" And I said, "No, I need cash." I was very firm. And then he started to walk away. And then I said, "Well, if you have some Dreamcast, I would trade for some Dreamcast." And so, of course, he had some Dreamcast. So he came back with this Resident Evil Nemesis,
Oh, nice.
and and it ended up being pretty much a even trade for that. So even though I didn't really do any shopping, I did end up trading for a Dreamcast game. But to answer your question, Two Dudes Gaming, they had a fantastic variety. They're really nice guys, and they're always willing to trade with you. You can walk right up to them with a box full of stuff, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be something that they'll trade with. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed their booth.
and that's the other thing. I don't think it's just that convention by itself, but I know that they're getting to sponsor. I think it's Southeast Game Exchange too, because I think I've seen their logo beforehand.
Yeah, yeah. They, I think they're one of the sponsors for Siege. They get around. They do a lot of cons.
Yeah, I would assume that the advertisement just for that is pretty expensive. I really thought about getting kind of like a sponsored little spot for Siege as well, because I think it's like $500 or something like that, and you get like a excuse me, a special vendor spot for the booth. And yeah, it's cool that they're like getting to expand out and not just stick to like one area. But yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of Two Dudes Gaming before.
I don't think I had ever before that con, but they got some cool stuff. I think they told me that they get, because they didn't just have one booth at Game Jam South. They had like six, and they just kind of put them together and put tables around it.
Oh
I
wow.
think they told me that at Siege they're getting 12 booths,
Holy
and
crap.
I mean that's a couple $1,000s, and they're just gonna line up just video games for I mean that's probably 30 feet of video games on each
Mhm.
side.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It
that's
sounds
gonna be.
like it's what, like close to $200 per booth. So yeah, you're pretty much up there with like the price, cuz I know some big video game conventions usually get a lot of like high spending vendors at those type of events. Unless you
Yeah,
go to like Game Jam South, where it's like a much smaller event, so you'll be about like $60 or somewhere around that range for a booth that size.
yeah, and I'm glad I got a discounted booth at Game Jam South because um that just it sweetened the deal even more being able to sell there. It was a really good time.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was noticing when I went to your booth is like you had like a mix of like just a bunch of different stuff, and I can't believe like I've never seen this at other booths before, but I think you were probably the first one that I've seen have like vintage hats just
Yeah.
like right in the front. Now, was that like part of your image for the booth, or is that just something new that you wanted to start selling at a convention?
It kind of is. I mean, in any video you watch of mine, I'm
Hmm.
wearing a vintage hat, and those were all hats that I've had listed on eBay for a while, and I was looking at them on my shelf, and I said I'm bringing them because I bet I'll sell a few, and I did sell a few, but putting them right up there on the very front,
Hmm.
I thought it was a good eye catcher. So um, it was kind of a double-edged sword. I was like, I'll bring them because I bet I can sell a few. And then when I got there and I started setting them up, and I was like, those kind of look good sitting out there right out front.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that you had on your pickups. Like one of the other things, it wasn't video game related, but I'm trying to remember the exact booth, and you can correct me on this. But there was a lady you were talking to that had a bunch of vintage hats. There was like just nothing on them, just like vintage snapback hats, and I think you still have the box on you. But yeah, there was like a bunch of those, and I know that you posted it up on Twitter.
So, and the reason she even talked to me is because she saw my vintage hats. So
Hmm.
that's like another good thing. But she sold me an entire box of blank vintage hats. These are real vintage rope bill
Hmm.
pullback. These are the real deal. And my idea is that I want to start getting patches and sewing patches on them, like so.
Oh, you already did one.
Well, this one's just pinned on right now.
Hmm.
I haven't sewed it yet, but I do have a Jason one that I did. I did this one.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, so that's just it was kind of fate because it's something that I already had in mind. I was gonna start like this summer. I wanted to start picking for vintage hats that I could put patches on,
Hmm.
and it was a crazy coincidence. She just walked up to me and she said, "Hey, I got a bunch of blank vintage hats," and like I said, I was trying to stay at my booth and not spend money, and I said, "Let me see them because that is something that interests me highly." And yeah, and now I'm collecting patches and collecting hats, and I'm a sewer now, which is kind of weird. I didn't think I'd ever be a sewer, but I got a drawer right here, and I just open it up and bring out all my sewing supplies, and I'm a sewing guy.
Actually, that's not a bad idea to start doing stuff like that, because there was somebody that was across the booth from us over during CorgsCon. Big shout out to them, that they were selling screen printed just logos on the hats. But to be honest, I think a lot more people would probably be interested in the patches, like request hats or whatever. So you honestly might be onto a gold mine, because I really don't know of any other vendor that I've been to that has ever done something like that before.
And I like patches better because they're just I don't know, it's tangible. I like the
Hmm.
embroidery. I like embroidered hats. It's just I like the feel of it. I like they're old timey. And also like all these patches that I have, they're iron on. I could just as easily put this hat on an ironing board and get it hot and iron it on. But
Hmm.
it doesn't guarantee that it's going to stay on. There's a chance that it might melt off or whatever. Sewing these on is a way better. I think it's just higher quality, and um, I always try to have quality stuff. And saying that, I'm just saying that I usually try to test all my games. I test all my consoles. I clean everything. Any vintage hat I buy to resell, I clean it first. I always try to make sure my stuff is quality and not junky. And it kind of flows over to this. Like I could iron this on, it'd take me 5 minutes, or
Hmm.
I could sew it on. It might take me 20 minutes, but it's gonna stay longer, and I think it looks better.
Oh yeah, I could definitely agree with that. Now, like I said before, the moment that you find like a vintage Mighty Ducks logo patch, that blue and purple hat that you have in that box, I mean, definitely let me know, because when I was a kid, the hat that I used to have, and I can't even remember where I lost it. But yeah,
I'm
just
a,
keep me in the know on that one.
I'll keep my eye out, man. I got something new to look for at cons now. You know, if anybody's got a bowl of patches or just some patches laying around, even if there's patches on shirts or something that I can take
Hmm.
off, you know, I'll do that too. I'm not picky on my patches. I'll find some patches.
Yeah, and there was somebody else that was in the comments section of that video that they brought up a good idea. Why not do like a Arkansas picker patch and just do merch for like the hats and sell them individually?
See, that's a good idea too. I really want to find me somewhere where I can get patches made
Hmm.
at an affordable price. I actually know a guy that might be able to make them for me. It's just I gotta work on the logistics of that a little bit more. But that's definitely a goal because I'd like my own hat with Arkansas picker patch on it. Maybe a jacket, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and definitely start selling those out. But yeah, like not necessarily Letterman jackets, but it's the ones that have the what's that material? It's not really plastic, but it's got that
Um,
I can't
it's
remember.
not maybe polyester. I know what you're talking about. I think they
Mhm.
call them bomber jackets.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I just could not remember the exact name of it, but yeah, just where they're just like very bubbly looking, but
yeah.
they actually feel very comfortable when you like slip them on.
I have two. They're super comfy. I love them.
Okay, so since we talked about a little bit about those conventions and just like a general idea of like things that you'd be on the lookout for, as far as like just any future conventions that you have on your bucket list that you would definitely love to be able to check out, as far like let's say Texas or somewhere maybe California or Seattle, Washington. Like what's that one place you would always want to go to be a vendor or just an attendee?
I would love to go to Siege.
Hmm.
I've been wanting to go to Siege for a while. It's an 11-hour drive for me.
Oh yeah.
So there it's it there the thing about it is I really want to go, but driving's going to cost a lot. Staying there is going to cost a lot.
Hmm.
Tickets aren't expensive, so that's not a big deal. But I would just have to make sure I could constitute me going as it being a net positive because in the end it would for YouTube and content creating. Every con I've gone to, I've made more friends through video gaming and YouTube and stuff and gotten more
Hmm.
connections. I met Retro Wolf 88 at Retropalooza and then he got me into Game Jam South. And then I met you at Game Jam South and now I'm talking to you. It's just the dominoes fall like that.
Hmm.
I felt like if I went to Siege it would be really good for just to be in the space and it'd be good for the channel. It'd be good to just hang out with everybody I've already met again. I'd really like to go to Siege for sure. And Retropalooza in Texas. That's one that I will probably go. There's two. There's one in Arlington and there's one in
Hmm.
Houston. The one in Arlington, I will probably go to that one like every year, forever, as long as I have it, because it was one of the most fun cons that I've been to in a long time. I had a blast there, so that's definitely one that I want to go to. There's another one in Texas called, oh gosh, I think it's called Classic Game Fest.
Oh, that one's new.
And I think that's what it's called.
Hmm.
Anyways, um, I have been told that it is like the collector's paradise because they have a high vendor count. They do less on guests and more on vendors, and and apparently it's like the best place to go if you're trying to complete collections and stuff.
Oh, I could imagine with like how some rare games are just hard to get a hold of. And if there's like that one little piece, like even if it's a manual or just like a box that you're just trying to complete your set with, that it's yeah, certain vendors may not have it. So it's good to be able to have a bunch of different backup vendors to be able to get deals from. So that's a new one I've not heard of. You said it was Classic Game Fest?
I think that's what it's called. It's Classic Game something.
Okay, well we'll definitely have to check into that because I don't think I've ever heard of that one before. But yeah, Retropalooza and Siege are like the two that we usually hear a lot of, especially something like the Classic Game Expo or Retro Gaming Expo, which is up in Seattle, Washington. Which I I don't know like who else still goes over there, but usually back in the day when retro gaming conventions were really starting to pick up was it was that one, and then there was one that was over in California, and now there's a bunch of these other conventions that are just like bursted out, like even the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I know that those are ones that everybody looks forward to. So, as far as like the ones that you've already been to, like what would you say has been one convention out of all of them you've either been a vendor or just an attendee at that you recommend highly?
Highly recommend Retropalooza if for because it's like a good starter convention for collectors. If you're a vendor, you're gonna make money there. There's so many people there spending money. And like I said, for like that's where I met Retro Wolf. It's good for content creators. If you have a small YouTube channel and you're wanting to branch out and you focus on retro gaming or just nostalgic stuff, retro stuff in general, um, go to Retropalooza in Texas. It's if you can afford it, the drive, not the ticket, because it's really cheap to get in.
Hmm.
If you can afford the trip, it has been very valuable, like just to me, and I recommend it for anybody who's in the collecting scene, anybody who you know wants to do some little content creation. It's a good place to go.
Perfect place to network. And that's the
Yes,
other
yes,
thing that I've noticed that it's what now 10 years old, I think is what Retropalooza is up to now.
I believe so.
It's incredible for like Jay to just do that one, and now he's done Houston, and the other one is that he's doing an anime convention as well, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can't remember. I think that was also in Texas, but yeah, he's doing that one too. And while I was down there, so after the show, everybody went to the same arcade. Like we all went to the same arcade to go hang
Hmm.
out. And um, like Jay was there, and the gaming historian was there.
Oh, nice.
Boogie was there, um, and the completionist was there. Jared,
Gerard,
that's his
yeah.
name. Gerard.
Mhm.
He was there. We all went there to hang out and play video games. And I was talking to Jay, and I was like, "You need to do a convention in Arkansas. Do it." And I told him, I was like, "You need to get with Retro Rick, and y'all need to just get you. There's tons of venues in Arkansas that they could rent out. You know, they could rent out a 20,000 square foot place, and if they put Retro Rick's name on it in Arkansas, it'll be packed." And I kept trying to put. I was like, "Do it, just do it. I promise you, you will just make money. I know you will." And he's not too convinced on Texas or Arkansas. He doesn't think the scene's going to be big enough. But I'm
Oh, I
telling you,
gotcha.
but I'm telling you, dude. Everybody in Arkansas, if they want to go to a good game convention, they have to leave the state. There's no video game convention in Arkansas. We have to leave the state. That's why I go to. That's why I got to go to Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama. You know,
Hmm.
I drove 8 hours last weekend to come hang out with y'all. But oh god, I would love for one to be in Arkansas. Maybe I'll start it.
Yeah,
Nobody's gonna.
that's
I
yeah.
don't have I don't have the pool. I don't have the pool, but it's just a mistake I need to make and just do.
Well, if anybody that is looking to help this man out and they are close to Arkansas, put up the money, make like a Patreon or just a
Yep.
GoFundMe, get
I'll make it.
Retro
I'll make it.
Arkansas. Yeah.
I'll make a GoFundMe and uh just please give me if 1,000 people give me $100 each, we'll make this happen.
Well, you heard it here first. Somebody just get it going and make this man's dream possible. Retro Arkansas or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
The Arkansas Picker Convention Fest Con
2023, 24,
2020
whichever it be.
24.
Well, maybe it'll happen, and we'll start to see that pop up, and then 3 more will come in place after that.
Maybe so. Maybe so. If it's in the cards.
Well, here's hoping, and anybody definitely help this man out. Alright, so with that being said, we talked a bit about just the convention side, but not so much about just your content, because I hadn't looked at when you started doing YouTube stuff. But the one thing that's usually different about pickers or like thrift store finds, they go for like some of the most oddball items, but it just based on like the stuff that you wear and like stuff that you usually pick up, it's always like just not video games. It's all like a bunch of random different stuff. So as far as like your style of like finds, what makes you different than like, let's say somebody like a Retro Rick or something like Pixel Game Squad or Retro Gaming Pandemic?
I started the easiest way for me to explain this is I started fresh. Like whenever I started my channel, I did not know what I was looking for. I didn't know what my channel was going to be. I just knew I wanted to go to yard sales and buy stuff and resell it. That's
Mhm.
all I knew. That's all I didn't know if I wanted to do video games, vintage clothes, what. So what it ended up being was me just picking up and reselling like anything I had an eye for. So it started out mainly video games, and then I started learning about more stuff, and then it started being different stuff. I started picking up old electronics and reselling them. I started reselling radios. I started reselling jackets. I started reselling just like all kinds of stuff. And like I will still go to a yard sale, and it happened this past weekend. I will go to a yard sale and just find something random, something that I would have never even thought of, and it just caught my eye, so I looked it up, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll resell these now. So, for instance, this past weekend, I went to a yard sale, and there was this big box on a big electronical box sitting on this table. I knew it was some kind of audio receiver, but I don't know anything about audio receivers, but I know what one generally looks like.
Hmm.
So I looked at it and I eBayed it. I looked it up on eBay to see what it was, and it looked like it went for about $400.
Holy cow.
So I bought it for $10. I bought it for $10. I brought it home and I put it on eBay. So within about 2 hours of me buying it, I put it on eBay. It was a quick turnaround. I bought it, I
Wow.
brought it home, I cleaned it, I tested it, I put it on eBay. After I put it on eBay, 10 minutes later, it sold for $300. And like I'm not always that lucky. That scenario might happen to me once every 4 months. But when it does happen like that, it's like, yeah, this is why I do it.
It's like magic, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the best feeling in the world. Like you just, I mean, anybody in Arkansas could have walked up to that yard sale, grabbed that, and either known what it was and sold it, or just if they wanted it, they could have kept it. I just so happened to be in the right place in the right time, and I just so happened to grab it, and it turned a pretty good profit. And that's I don't know, that's one of the things that'll keep you going sometimes as a reseller. Is when you hit it big, hit it big. I mean, it was like a profit of like $280. But whenever you hit a good sell like that, it pushes you forward. It's like, yeah, let's do it some more. It'll pump me into gear. I'll start, because every reseller has a death pile.
Hmm.
That's the stuff that they bring in from yard sales. Put it in a pile, and then they don't have the motivation to post it, so it just sits there. So we call it a death pile. Um, after you hit a good sell like that, you get motivated to go through your death pile. You're like, yeah, let's do some more selling. You start bringing out all that stuff you never wanted to test.
Hmm.
So I don't know, it's fun. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and since you mentioned about that, as far as like surprise items that you were on the lookout or just like originally with like video games, and then eventually you found other things that kind of threw you for a loop. But as far as like the one thing that you have seen, not just the item that was $400 that you sold for less than that, but something else that you may have found in the wild that you didn't expect to be as high as it was, or very sought after, that you were like, holy crap, I gotta look for more of these now.
So, do you know what they call it? It's one of those things, those things from back in the day. You put a disc in the top of it. It's a
Oh,
viewfinder,
viewfinder, yeah.
and you go through the scenes. So I was digging through a barn. This dude was they were having an estate sale, and there was a barn behind the house. I said, "Can I
Hmm.
look through the barn?" They were like, "Yeah, go ahead." I found a milk crate full of the reels that you put in a viewfinder, and they were all sealed. And I
Oh,
was picking them
wow.
up. I was picking them up, and I was going through them, and they were like 1972, 1980. They were pretty much in like a 10-year period, but they were all sealed, and it was probably 60 of them, all sealed. I brought them home. I spread them out on my floor. I took pictures of them, and I said, they've been sitting in a barn, but they're sealed. And I started them at an auction for, I think I started them at like $25 at the auction. So I was like, because I bought them for 20,
Hmm.
and I was like, well, I'll start this auction for like $25. If nothing else, I'll make like $5 on them. That auction lasted a week, and the end result, the last bid was $333.
Holy cow.
I sold all those old, dusty viewfinder reels for over $300. That absolutely blew my mind. Like, whenever because I'll get notifications on my phone
Hmm.
that I got another bid. I'm like, oh, it hit $50. I was like, that's crazy. I doubled my money on these old nasty reels. And then it was like $110. I'm like, what? And then like it was like $200. And I was just like, what is going on? And then like honestly, after the auction ended, I still was kind of in disbelief. I was like, this guy's gonna like bail on me. He's not gonna pay this for these old things. But it went through. I sent him. He left a really good review on my eBay. So that's just and that's like I would have never thought about that. I just grabbed them because I knew that they were old. If I find old stuff that's sealed,
Hmm.
usually I know I can turn some kind of profit on it. So that's just what I thought. I was like, man, I might be able to double my money on these.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy to see that, because I don't even think a lot of people seem to think that stuff like that, where there's not really much going on, you're just clicking a button and it just like changes over to a photo. But I guess people have nostalgia for like old old visor reels like that or something. That's kind of wild to see those go for that much.
it was really wild. It was a shock to me. And now whenever I'm out, if I see a viewfinder or I don't see them that often, but when I do see them, I'll pick them up and look through them and see if there's any of those discs with them, because now I know like people want these, I guess.
It's that old like retro style tech that just a lot of us used to mess around with because we were just trying our best to not get bored at all. But man, that I may have to look for that myself, because I started doing pickup stuff like that at yard sales again. So that damn, I have to see those like visuals now to see if those are still out here. You don't know what you find until you start to see them go for a couple $100s. That's incredible. Okay, so now since we talked about like some yard sale and just going to like, I don't think we said flea markets yet, but as far as like favorite time of the day, or just like the time when you go out to find this stuff, like are you usually like very early around 5 o'clock, or is it just something kind of like how Billy and Jay usually do sometimes, and it's like at 1 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon?
I used to sleep in when I was younger. I like to sleep in, and I would get up and I would go yard selling around like 9:30 or 10.
Hmm.
That is not what I do anymore. I get up at like 5:30 or 6 and I hit the road, and cuz a lot of yard sales don't even start till like 7. but I want to be. Sometimes I want to be there waiting for them to open.
Hmm.
There's certain yards that like because I'll look at what yard sales are in my town and which ones I should probably go to first because there might be a lot of people at this one, but I'll find the what I think might be the best one, and I will get there, and I'll be waiting for them to open the door,
Hmm.
or just in the driveway and wait for them to say, "Hey, y'all, come on, we're ready." No, I get a pretty early start. I don't get up at 5, but I get a pretty early start. Like this past Saturday, I got up at 6, and by 7 o'clock, I was at an outdoor flea market. I stayed at the outdoor flea market for about an hour, and then I went to my hometown, and then I went yard selling. And then when yard selling kind of ran dry, I went to Goodwill, and I kind of like I just kind of make on my Saturdays are busy. I get up early, and I make my rounds, and then I might get home at 2 or 3, and then whenever I get home at 2 or 3, well, it's time to go through all this stuff because I can't leave it sitting around too long.
Hmm.
I'm pretty busy on Saturdays, but I try to get an early start. When I was younger, I'd sleep in. I When I was younger, I'd probably drink the night before, and then like sleep in, and then get up and just kind of go yard selling whenever I wanted to.
Hmm.
Now treat it like work. Like I set my alarm, and I'm like, "Whoop, 6 o'clock, time to get up, get my shoes on, eat some breakfast, and go to work. Go to work. Go picking."
Yeah, go digging for those deals.
Yep.
So I guess the other thing I was gonna ask is like you mentioned Goodwills, and I know that some of them are different, but there's always like that different area where it's like you go to some of the more bigger city Goodwills and going to like small town Goodwills. Have you been able to experience either of those before, or is it only just been like a small town one that you have?
So the two Goodwills I have two Goodwills in my town, um, and they're both really, really good because they're small town Goodwills. There's almost always really good deals.
Hmm.
One of them prices stuff a little high, one of them doesn't. It just depends on what it is. Um, any Goodwill I've been to in a big city has been bougie. It's always been like higher prices.
Oh yeah.
Nicer stuff, like they want the store to look nice.
Hmm.
My Goodwills they will sell garbage, like they don't care. But that's what I like because I find good stuff in there. Like I went to one in Temple, Texas, and it was just it was more like a boutique almost. They were selling like, nice clean clothes.
Hmm.
Like I want the shirts with stains on them. Give me that. Uh I also went to one in Memphis, and it was the same way. It was just I don't know. Like anytime I'm in a big city, I don't really look for Goodwills because all my experiences with big city Goodwills have been bougie and just not. It's not where the deals are.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I think I've only found like maybe one good game, and it was like a Wii game that usually goes for like 20, and they sold it for like $7. So I mean, that was about the only best one that I found there too. But yeah, it does seem like that the bigger city ones are just because a lot of people know that Goodwills usually get stuff like that, and then there's the auctions that they sometimes do at some stores. Have you seen some of them do that?
I've never seen them do them live in store, but I know that. So my two Goodwills, they used to sell video games a lot. They don't anymore because they've been sending them to their online store. So now
Oh, okay.
when they get video games, instead of putting them on the shelves, they've been putting them on their like eBay site that they have.
Hmm.
Uh, but you were talking about finding some video games at your Goodwill. At my Goodwill, probably 5 months ago, I found NCAA 14 for Xbox 360. I bought it for $6,
Oh,
brought it home.
nice.
I put it on eBay for $160, and it sold in like 30 minutes. So that was a quick turnaround. But that's probably the best deal I've ever gotten out of my Goodwills.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see some sports games usually get that much nowadays, but there's been like rumors of the NCAA license potentially coming back and doing like more sports games, but there's been no confirmation from EA or 2K Games or whoever would decide to do something like that.
Whenever I bought that game, like my buddies were like, "You need to sell that fast," and this was like 5 or 6 months ago. Whenever they were like, "You need to sell it fast because they're talking about um, renewing the license, and if they start making more of those games, the value of that game's going to go down."
Hmm.
And I was like, "All right, well, I better sell it quick." And of course, I sold it quick, which is cool. But and then nothing happened. So yeah, I don't know. You
Yeah,
never know.
maybe one day somebody will pick it up and make games like that again, because I know that those were really popular for a time, and they're still technically sought after. There's people that still collect them now. Okay, so I guess we're there's not really a whole lot left in the interview like I thought there was gonna be. But I guess the one thing that I was gonna ask is if there is one type of content that you have yet to tamper with that you would love to be able to start doing, what type of video would you like to start making for the channel?
I would like to start making videos of repairing consoles.
Hmm.
It's something that I've dabbled in for a while. Like, and when I say dabbled in, I can do a lot of replacing stuff that doesn't need soldering. Like if it's just unplug and put in like a disk drive or something, there's a lot of simple things that I can do like that. And every console that I get, I open up and I clean, so I know how to do that. I know how to take apart almost every console.
Hmm.
I would like to start. I just bought a solder machine. I would like to start really fixing consoles, and I'd like to start making videos of me fixing consoles because it's something that I'm super interested in, and I think it would do okay on my channel. My channel is like kind of divided up into two sections right now. There's like my picking videos, and then there's like my retro game videos.
Hmm.
I think I could probably slide some console repair videos in there every now and then.
It would honestly like branch out just the amount of variety that one channel has, because I think that some people are kind of off and on about just trying to do something different because people are afraid to tinker with new things that they are afraid the algorithm will be able to like just hemorrhage their viewers. But yeah,
Yeah.
if the viewers that are on your channel would be open to it, like if you do a community post that say, would I be good to do something like this, or would you watch it, then yeah, I think if the general consensus is saying yeah, we would watch that, I think that anybody would basically post anything up they want if they wanted to.
Yeah, and another thing that I like to do is like whenever I go through, so like behind me, there's you can see a bunch of just stuff right here.
Hmm.
So this is all I'm having a yard sale and I'm doing a convention. So this is some of it's for a yard sale, some of it's convention. Well, sometimes what I like to do is I'll put one of these boxes up here on my little table and I'll just go through it and I'll live stream me doing that. And cuz I want to everything you have is content. You can make content out of everything. And whenever I'm just sitting here pricing this stuff or cleaning it or whatever, it's like, man, I could probably be making a video about this. Well, I started live streaming it. So now whenever I go live, everybody knows that Brandon's either cleaning the console, testing console, pricing stuff, cleaning hats, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And I have a good 20 or 30 people that'll hang out and watch me just sit here and just price stuff because we just hang out. I have a video, I have a camera pointing at me, and I have a camera pointing at my hands. I have two cameras,
Hmm.
and I can show people what I'm doing. They can watch me clean stuff. I think it's therapeutic to some people just to sit here and watch me do whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't understand it. But that's like one thing that like I don't know. It's really random. But like that's another thing that it's like content that I want to make, but I couldn't make a video of me sitting here pricing games for 3 hours.
Hmm.
That's not gonna work. Nobody's gonna watch that. But when I live stream it, people come in, we talk, we have a good time, we interact. So sometimes you just got to figure out what to do with your content. And that's something that I'm still learning to do every day.
Oh, that's definitely understandable. Now, I know that you're talking about just live streaming for your YouTube channel, but I think you mentioned at the con that we were at that you also did Whatnot. Is that correct?
I did Whatnot for like 3 months, I guess, like three
Hmm.
solid months. Like I was doing a show a week for like 3 months, um, and then and I didn't quit for like any big reason. Um, the reason is I was selling on Whatnot. You don't really sell stuff for good money, but you
Hmm.
sell stuff. You sell stuff fast. So I was just getting rid of stuff on Whatnot, making money. And then I started hoarding my inventory because I had a convention coming up, and I was like, "Well, I need to stop doing Whatnot because I'm about to sell all my stuff." So I stopped doing Whatnot to hold on to all my inventory,
Hmm.
and then that was actually my first con I ever did. So I sold at that con, and I was like, "This is the way to sell stuff." I love like standing there and like talking to people
Hmm.
and trying to figure out the best game for them and exchanging money, making deals. That's something that I really enjoy. So I like the like salesman part of being at a con and vending. And I was like, I'm just gonna start selling stuff like this now. So usually if I get consoles, video games or whatever, instead of doing Whatnot or eBay anymore for that kind of stuff, I hold on to it because I want to sell it live and in
Hmm.
action, in action.
Straight
But
to the point. Yeah.
I w- I would do Whatnot again for. I don't think I would ever go back and do Whatnot for expensive stuff.
Hmm.
If I had like just bulk inventory that I need to get rid of, and because I know a lot of resellers shop on Whatnot too, and that sometimes that's how they get their inventory.
Hmm.
If there was ever a bunch of stuff that I ever just really needed to sell for cheap, I'd probably go back to Whatnot for a little while.
Yeah, because I think I've done it the same thing too, and that was another thing that I've seen is there are some video game business owners who do usually go up on there and they will probably get like an influx of excessive items that they can't move themselves, so they have to bring it out there and just do like cheap auctions. And I think that that's like pretty much a smarter method to be able to start selling if you're not owning a store and you're not getting like a bunch of stuff at a time, then yeah, you're gonna burn through that inventory pretty quickly if you just only do Whatnot and conventions. So I think what you just said is probably the smarter route until eventually you do get a bunch of stuff in now.
Yeah, yeah, and on Whatnot, it's an auction, so you don't know what's gonna happen. Um, I almost always did good on my consoles. I only got burned a few times because maybe it didn't happen a lot, but you might sell a Wii for $15 or something,
Mhm.
and that's about what I get them for anyways. So in that case, I kind of broke even or whatever. That doesn't happen a lot, but anytime I bring consoles or anything big to a convention, like they sell for good money.
Hmm.
And I always give deals always. If what I do is whenever I price stuff for conventions, if it's video games, I look up what they go for on price charting, and then I usually take off like 10 to 20%
Hmm.
because I know at conventions people are going to be looking at price charting, and if they pull up price charting and whatever I'm selling is already $3 or $4 less than what it says it goes for, it's a lot easier to sell. And if anybody asks me if I'd take less, I almost always take less. But consoles, they I rarely get talked down on them because I guess I price them really good. Not being like, oh, I'm so cool, I price them really good. But
Hmm.
that's just something I've noticed. Like I rarely ever get talked down on a console. People say, hey, this is $40, and I go, yeah, and they're like, okay. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's understandable. So I guess we pretty much covered over everything for the interview. And yeah, being able to just talk shop about like just the whole reselling side of things. And it seems like you're doing pretty good just doing your own thing while making video content that you enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy it. It's something that like I started doing, and I bought everything cheap. Like I bought a cheap GoPro, um, and a cheap carrier and a cheap thing to think. And I was just like, I wanted to go in cheap because I was like, what if I don't? What if this doesn't turn out good? What if it turns out to be a dud? Or what if I
Hmm.
just get tired of it? Well, and then like I started making good money reselling, and then my videos started getting better views, good views, and I started enjoying it more. And then like I got my game room, and like you can't really see it, but everything around me right here is furnished for reselling. Like I have a place to take pictures and all this other stuff. I started kind of molding my life around reselling, and now it's just like who I am. I mean, everybody knows that whenever people see my truck in town, they know that I'm either going to buy something, or I just bought something, or I'm selling something. Um, so it's I'm blessed that I picked a hobby that is so much fun, and instead of draining me of all my money, I get to make a little bit of money because I could be rebuilding cars, and and then I'd just be sinking my money into stuff and throwing it away. Um, and then I get to do cool stuff. I get to go to Alabama, sell
Hmm.
video games. I get to go to Alabama, sell video games, hang out with a bunch of cool people, and and then come back with a little bit of money. I mean, that's like best case scenario. That's the coolest thing to me.
Networking and making money at the same time just goes hand in hand. But there
It
we
does.
go.
I
Uh,
love it.
Thank you for dropping by for the interview. And for anybody, actually, before we get to the very, very end of it, there was one other thing I did forget about. And there's a segment that we do on the show that's called the 5 count. So, what this is 5 recommendations of content creators that you are a big fan of, that you recommend anybody who is watching this right now to go check out their videos. It doesn't matter if it's on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, or whatever website that you're watching them on right now.
Watch the Cincinnati Picker on YouTube.
Hmm.
I have learned so much from him. He's a YouTube reseller, and that's his full time job. And he's extremely nice. He's like the nicest guy ever. He's very very knowledgeable. You can just sit there and watch his because he's got like 8 years of content. You can just sit there and watch his videos, and you can learn so much stuff. Um, Not just because we're buddies, but I would also say Retro Rick because he kind of watching his videos and Cincinnati Pickers videos
Hmm.
both kind of got me into content creation. I'd already been a YouTuber for a few years doing different stuff.
Hmm.
But watching Retro Rick really pushed me into doing this because I watched him and I went, I could do that. So I started doing it. Another one is Collector's Luck.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Collector's Luck, he drives me crazy because he just what he does is he has like a copy and paste message that he sends to everybody on Facebook that has the yard sale,
Hmm.
and people he messages like 80 people a day, and then he might get 3 replies, but in one of those replies he's gonna get like $5,000 worth of video games for like $150, and
Wow.
I'm not exaggerating. Like he gets the craziest deals. So I definitely recommend him. Um, there's another smaller channel called Resell to Roam.
Hmm.
I think he only has like 600 subscribers or so right now, but they are another reseller channel that are very very knowledgeable. I recommend them for anything that you need to learn about in reselling. And one more. One more. What about chicken wings? That
No,
guy
you
makes
shouldn't. No.
he
Why?
makes he makes some cool content, and he
That-
does really good interviews.
I'm supposed to be doing the shameless plugging for myself.
No, man,
Oh
but
man.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's really cool. It's rare that I really just get to sit down and talk about stuff like this. Um, so thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's passing the southern hospitality. I lost my southern accent, and it's like you move up to the north and it's like you lose it. I don't even know where my accent went, but Arkansas Picker, thank you very much for dropping on the interview. For anybody who has not watched this man's content, you can follow him over on YouTube at youtube.com/Arkansas Picker. Or you can follow him on Instagram. I think it's the Arkansas Picker, or is I did spell that
Yep.
correctly? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just making sure I had that correctly because I tend to forget like what the hell I'm trying to read off at the same time. But
Yeah, somebody already took Arkansas Picker on Instagram, so I had to get the Arkansas Picker.
and there you go. That's kind of what I did with my Twitter account because I lost my access to the old account, so I had to put the in front of mine. So, yeah, thank you for dropping in for the interview. I was glad to be able to get you on for this for the short amount of time we were able to talk at Game Jam South. But
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll have to get you again on the future somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'll see you again.